at this time on Al Jazeera.
East Timor's government has declared it's time for foreign forces to leave the country. But with a frail infrastructure, is this nation prepared to face a future without international support? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
If you're a Nokia user, you can download Al Jazeera's news widget from Nokia's Ovies store. The news widget, available on compatible Nokia devices, gives users quick and easy access to real-time news updates from Al Jazeera English. See the world in real time. Al Jazeera Mobile.
More tension in Tripoli. Residents say the Libyan regime is arming pro-Gaddafi civilians to suppress the dissent. (1700 GMT, 7 p.m. in Tripoli. I'm Kamal Santa Maria with continuing coverage on Al Jazeera of the uprising in Libya. They are accused of being mercenaries. We speak to the Malians fleeing the violence in Libya. Also a setback for Yemen's president after key tribal leaders back the anti-government protests. And why a future Egyptian president could find themselves limited to no more than 8 years in power. So most of Libya is out of his control, and Muammar Gaddafi's grip on power may soon be confined only to the capital. We are getting reports just now from a Libyan newspaper of dozens severely wounded, they're saying, after a pro-Gaddafi battalion opened fire on protesters near Sabrata. As I look at the map here just now, it is close to Tripoli, certainly in the west of the country, not far from Tripoli. A city which remains divided, because we're hearing reports the Gaddafi regime is arming civilians to battle anti-government protesters. This as Gaddafi's own security forces give up the fight in some neighbourhoods in the capital. These pictures show the damage in Tripoli after the latest fighting between Gaddafi loyalists and protesters. Up to 7 people were killed on Friday when gunmen opened fire on people who'd rallied at Friday prayers. Hod Abdelhamid is in eastern Libya. She wraps up the latest from across the country.
Praying to God for help in surviving an intense battle in Zawiya, 50 kilometers west of the capital Tripoli. Gaddafi is the enemy of God, this protester cries out. Seconds later, the gunfire gets much closer. This video was sent to Al Jazeera after being filmed on Saturday morning. Zawiya is a strategic town with an oil terminal where opposition forces are gathering to drive Muammar Gaddafi from his last remaining strongholds.
Now there's only Tripoli and a few other towns left. That's why I urge the Libyan people that there's no going back. Going back's impossible. We have to move forward. All the patriotic, courageous and respected Libyan youth should help the people of Tripoli to carry out their duties.
Much of eastern Libya is already in opposition control, but these images, set to be filmed on Friday, show massive protests in Misurata, another western city 210 kilometers from the capital. Al Jazeera cannot independently verify this video or another said to be from Misurata that appears to show more soldiers joining the protesters' cause. Libya's head of special forces, the latest Gaddafi ally, now rallying for his removal.
I place all my expertise and capabilities at the service of the youth revolution. I urge all honest members of the special forces to rejoin their units immediately and to protect the gains of the February 17th revolution and protect the lives of the Libyan people and their property.
And this video shows exactly why Libyans need protecting. Heavily armed men drag away a limp body and stuff it into a car. Uploaded on YouTube, it also can't be verified, but is said to be filmed in Tripoli during Friday's clashes. Painting a different picture, these images, shot by Associated Press on a government-sponsored media offensive, under the restrictions of Gaddafi loyalists.
Tripoli is 100% safe. There are no problems. People are going about their business. There are no problems and people are going to work.
It would seem this vision is about as useful as state television to show what's really happening in Libya, or just how much longer its under siege leader can hang on. Most of the oil-rich East has fallen into the hands of the opposition. There is a sense of security, but it's a volatile situation. The opposition also says it has taken control of oil refineries, now operating at a minimal capacity. For people here, the most important is to retain the gains, keep the momentum, while they wait and see what happens in the west of the country. Hud Abdul Hamid, Al Jazeera, Eastern Libya.
Now, some of the banks have reopened in the opposition-held city of Benghazi, a sign that life could slowly be getting back to normal. Dozens of Libyans lined up outside a bank which had closed for days during the violence which forced pro-Gaddafi loyalists out of the city. Some banks did open up on Thursday, but many people decided to just wait to make sure the streets were relatively safe. A look at this new video which has come out from the eastern city of Al-Baida. It shows one of Muammar Gaddafi's palaces, parts of it destroyed during the unrest, as protesters tried to take over the city and expel pro-Gaddafi forces. The palace had iron doors leading to underground tunnels which are said to extend for several kilometres. And elsewhere, but still concerning Libya, the UN Security Council is meeting again to firm up a draft resolution calling for sanctions against Gaddafi and his government. Turkey's Prime Minister, though, criticising such sanctions, warning the Libyan people are the ones who will suffer the most. During a UN meeting late on Friday, Libya's ambassador denounced Gaddafi, who 3 days earlier he'd called his friend. Mohammed Shalgam also criticised Gaddafi's attacks on civilians in an emotional speech. Shalgam said he could not believe the violence the leader was inflicting on his own people. Ibrahim Shakir is with us here in the studio, as he has been for the evening, from the Brookings Centre in Doha. On that point of UN Security Council sanctions, the US sanctions as well, I mean, the argument, I think, is that it doesn't do anything because you are dealing with a man, Gaddafi, and a regime that doesn't listen at the best of times.
You are absolutely right, Kamal, and it really saddens me that the international community is not learning lessons from these international sanctions. We have seen these similar sanctions imposed previously in Iraq and other places, and we have always seen that it really backfired, in most of the cases. However, I think, which is what we can do now is that we can think of a different set of actions, which is we can talk about targeted sanctions, because freezing the membership of the Libyan community, how is this going to affect the regime? Or even travel ban, on the regime figures. How they're not traveling anyway. So really the practical outcome is really not helping or not affecting the regime.
In fairness to the international community, are they doing pretty much all they can short of going into Libya and intervening, which no one's going to do just yet?
Thank you. That's a good question. Actually, there are still many other things that they can do, and I'm going to suggest something here, is that can do without necessarily going to Libya and try to force the regime out, which is, we haven't heard one good example that we can think of, is that we haven't heard yet anything from the international community about targeting those that they support the regime, like in particular who are providing the mercenaries. These are the ones we heard about. Chad, we heard about other countries that they're providing mercenaries. We don't know, but this is something that the international community hasn't even touched about that. And we know that the mercenaries in particular, they are supporting the regime significantly and in prolonging this suffer and atrocities that the Libyan people are taking. So this is one area I suggest that the international community look into very carefully and can propose some measures because this will weaken the regime, no doubt.
Around this time last night, Friday night, we had a press briefing from the White House. Yes. And the press secretary was saying never before has there been this much action this quickly, obviously trying to talk up what they were doing. Yeah. Is that a fair comment, though, that actually the world has reacted quickly, faster this time, because they were criticised for not reacting fast enough with Egypt?
Well, to be fair with the U.S. in particular, I think this time we have seen something that the declared positions, at least, is that they have made these good statements, coming from the White House and from other U.S. officials. And I think one reason to explain this is that the U.S. lacks leverage to impact the regime as it had with the Egyptian regime in particular, because with this regime, the Libyan regime, the U.S. does not have good relationship with it to begin with, to be able to pick up the phone and call Gaddafi and try to impact him. Or the U.S. doesn't provide any financial assistance to the Libyan regime so it can use it as a way to pressure the regime and stop and force them to change their position. However, what I haven't seen that's being done enough is in particular from Europe, and in particular also from Italy and Silvio Berlusconi in particular, because this is the person who enjoyed good relationship with Gaddafi, and there are a lot of deals that probably we don't even know about that between the two presidents, and this area that is not being used the way I'm seeing it, and this could bring about impact.
And funny you should mention, thank you, Ibn. Funny you should mention Italy just at the moment, because Gaddafi's strongest European ally has weighed in on the uprising in Libya. Political meeting in Rome, Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi said this, quote, "It appears that effectively Gaddafi no longer controls the situation in Libya." So it backs up what Ibrahim was telling us there, that things are certainly changing on the support front for Mr. Gaddafi. Now, the Libyan government has begun offering financial sweeteners to the population in a bid to quell anti-government protests. The official Jamhuriya station, a television agency, on Saturday carried two announcements during its daily programming. In the first, the so-called Popular Committee offers 500 Libyan dinars to all families in the country, which they can collect from specific banks from Sunday. The second offers all unemployed graduates to go to their nearest bank to get a loan. Now, foreign migrants from Libya have been streaming into neighbouring Tunisia to escape the violence. They include many Africans running for their lives for fear of being mistaken for mercenaries. Nazanin Mashiri reports from the Tunisian-Libyan border.
Libya is one of the most dangerous places in the world right now if you're black and African. Anti-government protesters thought Seydou Boubacar Jalou and his friend were mercenaries. Pro-Gaddafi forces targeted them for being foreigners. In the end, these Malians fled for their lives by night. They say the roads out of the west are still in the hands of those loyal to Gaddafi.
They were wearing army uniforms, they have berets, everything that an army has. They have Kalashnikovs, handguns, machetes, clubs. 15 kilometers from a small town, we saw a Libyan tank. The situation is very, very dangerous. Every day there are more than 100 who die. Every day there are shootings. The most dangerous situation is for foreigners like us, and also us, black people, because Gaddafi brought soldiers from